Hello and welcome to the Car Care channel live stream. How you guys doing? Hope everybody's doing well. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my day. It's been a lazy Sunday is what we like to call it here at the Car Care family land. Just woke up late and just kind of chilled the whole day. The last 2 weeks has been interesting. Just filming a series and work is busy and everything is just lit up. The whole board is lit up green. Everything is good, just busy, trying to get everything going. Guys, I would like to say once more, thank you so much for all your love and support, for sticking around with me for one whole year. Can you believe it's been a year? I can't believe it's been a year. It feels like it's been shorter, but it's been a year, and everything's going well, and here's to many years to come, I suppose. Well, having said that, let's start with the first question here. What do you guys say? So, Vishal Mohan says, hey, AMD, hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Bought a RAV4 XLE in Colorado, 5,000 less than what I was quoted in New York. Drove it 550 miles to break in. Then drove it to New York in 3 shifts of 700, 700, and 300 miles. Changed the oil as soon as I got to New York. What else can I do to take care of my car? You also asked about the wireless charger. You're trying to shop for a better price, and should you buy it and have another dealer install it? Well, I think you did everything you can. At this point, you drove it the 550 miles before driving it the long trip. That actually, most people won't do that. So you're already up to a good start. You did the break-in oil change, so you're good. I don't think there's anything else you should be doing. Just take care of the car, continue with maintenance. You should have no issues. As far as the wireless charger, before you buy it from another dealer and have another dealer install it, call the other dealer that's going to install it and ask them, because that's going to vary by dealership, honestly. You're going to want to ask them, hey, guys, do you mind if I bring you an accessory? Would you install it for me? Just to avoid later finding out that they don't want to do that. So, Ron Howell says, my company has 2 Toyota hybrids, and I was trying to find out the best way to take care of their batteries. How often should they be driven for peak performance? And how often should the battery filter be changed? So, Ron, you have company cars. Usually company cars are well taken care of because people are, the companies, they have a pretty set schedule for maintenance and everything. But you want to keep up with general maintenance of the car. As far as the batteries, you do want to make sure they're driven often. They're not just sitting for months at a time. And then check the filter every 3 months. It depends on your use. I don't know what kind of use you have for the cars, but if you use them to transport stuff, items in the back, something dusty, I don't know what kind of company you have, you want to keep an eye on it. Start with a month, even 3 months, every 3 months, check them, and then you're going to establish a good schedule based on your use for the cars. But otherwise, really just keep up with the regular maintenance. Keep the filter clean. You should have no issues. James, thank you so much for your super chat. Here's the question. What would you like to see in an upcoming redesigned Tacoma and 4Runner? Honestly, I don't want to be a whistleblower. I don't know if that's the word, but a leaker, if you would. There are some news about the 2022 Tundra, and potentially, you might see that same engine in the Tacoma or 4Runner, maybe a detuned version, maybe a non-turbo version. There has been talked about the 4Runner having a 4-cylinder, which is very possible, 4-cylinder turbo. But honestly, I would like for them to kind of do best of both worlds. And this is something that we have said to Toyota at any chance we've gotten, but I don't know if this platform reaches Toyota better. I hope it does. I wish they would keep the ancientness of the 4Runner. I understand they have to change the engine and the drivetrain for emissions, but keep everything as ancient as possible. Update what you absolutely have to, but add the option for all the safety tech, all the new technology, but make it an option. So basically, average Joe that wants to buy just a good old 4Runner that will run forever, they have the option to do so. Sometimes they can't, because most of these safety features that everybody dislikes, they're becoming more standard or required, especially like the backup camera. Some of the other stuff are going to become required by law if you want to sell it in the US. But I wish they keep it as ancient as possible. That's what's selling these trucks, and that's why I'm not saying the new stuff is not good, but when you start putting too much technology in cars, they get more complicated and they lose kind of that old school feel. And as far as the Tundra, I will show it's not a leak. It's just a prediction and a pretty confirmed prediction. The new engine will be a 3.5 twin turbo V35A FTS. That's the biggest prediction. And if you want to know the information on that engine, it's the same engine, the LS500. It's not a new engine. It's not a one-off. Oh my God, it's going to be a test bed. No, it's been out in the LS500, I believe, since 2018. So there you go. That's the potential engine for the Tundra. It's a great engine so far. Too new, and it's too limited number on the LS500 because they don't sell as much as Toyotas. But still, that is, by the way, is a dynamic force engine on the Tundra. It's very similar to the four-cylinder. You've seen me talk about it. You've seen me put one together in a video. But the V35A is essentially a dynamic force. It has all the same features. It's the same concept, just in a V6. Makes a lot of power, very high efficiency. But this is not a leak. This is not information through Toyota. This is just the most prediction. Looking at the 300 series Land Cruiser and what they talked about for the engine, that's the only engine that Toyota has that matches that description, if you would. R. Cavazos, thank you so much for your super chat. Why do Tacomas have non-functional hood scoops? They need to make it functional. Yes, I agree. Same thing with the 4Runner. But the thing is, what are they going to make it functional for? That's the biggest question. They don't have turbos. They don't have, they're not really designed for already like with a snorkel or that's good. So I don't see the point of having a hood scoop that is functional. If they had an intercooler at the top, maybe when they start using turbos, they'll have that. But I don't know if they're ever going to do that. They've had, even on the Supra, there's fake vents everywhere. That's just something that Toyota does, unfortunately. I wish they would change it or just take it out. It does look good on the 4Runner Tacoma, but as far as it being functional as an air intake, it wouldn't really do much, honestly. That's just my opinion. So I can't read your name because I think that is in Hebrew, but thank you so much for your super chat. Thank you for all the work. Is the email option still relevant? Folks, the emails have gotten out of control, I'll be honest, because in between filming, family, work, everything in between, it's really hard for me to keep up with the emails. I'm trying my best here and there, but I have a very bad backlog. And now the social media, the Instagram, Facebook Messenger also gotten pretty bad. You got to know that there's a difference. When you send me an email, I don't want to just give you a blanket answer or not do. Sometimes with emails, I read an email, I have to do some research and get you the info you need. It takes time, and it's taking time away from my family, from work, from everything else. So at this point, I will say this. The best option for you, if you need something, is to leave a comment on any of the videos. Some has mentioned that I only answer comments on new videos. I don't do that. I actually still keep up with all the comments. Within 24, 48 hours, you'll get an answer. So if you have a question other than the live streams, comment is the best way to get. Email is the last option because that is really hard to keep up with at this point. And then the social media is also getting harder, slower, because it just takes a lot of time to respond, and you just don't know the volume that I'm getting. So if you don't mind the wait, send an email, send social media. If you do want an answer in a timely fashion, leave a comment. Any of the videos, just, hey, AMD, and write your question, and I'll get back to you. Some of the comments will escape, but for a large percentage, like 95%, I will get to them. All right. So Michael Nash says, hi AMD, I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you very much for asking. I'm going to change the transmission for my transmission fluid for my 2010 Yaris sedan. Is it going to do any harm replacing the transmission oil filter every 60,000 miles? It won't do any harm, but it won't do any good, honestly. If you've been replacing the fluid on time, you should have no issues just leaving that transmission fluid filter. It'll be good. Otherwise, there's no problem changing it. Just make sure you keep the cleanliness there. You got to understand, transmissions, they really don't do well with contaminants from outside. Make sure when you drop the pan, clean everything, keep everything very clean as possible. Mito Mr. Twice as nice. Salute from Texas. Well, salute from Chicago, sir. Thank you very much for joining the live stream. CTP Awesome. Thank you for your super chat. 2016 Toyota Highlander, 94,000 miles. Has an audible knocking sound coming from the passenger side of the engine under the oil pan. Knocking gets faster as engine speeds up. What could that be? So the knocking sound, it's hard for me to tell without hearing it, but I would look at anything that happened to the engine beforehand, like if there was a bent oil pan, like if it got dented up, because the pickup is really close to the oil pan. If that got dented, or if the oil pan currently is dented, that could be an issue with oil pressure. The other you gotta also know one thing about the 2GR engine that you have. They are loud. When you just lay underneath the car and listen to it, you're gonna hear a lot of noises. Here's what I suggest to you. Film a video with the sound, go on top, go underneath, try to use a good camera to catch up a good audio so I know where you're listening to it. Upload it to YouTube, leave a comment with the link, and I'll listen to it and I'll give you a better opinion. This is really hard to just guess like that without hearing the sound, but as far as something common, there's nothing common, but one thing is common. This engine is loud. The 2GR FE, it's a very loud engine. That's just the way it is. It doesn't mean there's a problem. But how's the oil maintenance? Has there been loss of oil? Did this car run low on oil at some point? You know, it goes from there, but it starts with me listening to the noise to be able to tell you exactly what's going on. So, next question. Jake Duncan, buying a new 21 SR5 Tacoma next week. Should I get an extended warranty? Do plan on keeping the trunk long, but $2,250 extra for warranty puts me at a very top of my budget. Well, Jake, here's what I recommend. You are the only one that can decide if you should get the extended warranty, but here's what I would tell you to kind of make you make a better decision, some advice. Extended warranties, especially an extended warranty of $2,250, is not a lot. Now, the Tacoma has gotten much better in the 21. Most of the little stuff that it has been taken care of. You plan to keep this for a long time. If you do a lot of driving, it's not worth it because you're gonna run out of that warranty very quick, and it's not gonna be worth it. But if you are gonna drive normal miles, you know, 10, 15,000 miles, even 17,000 miles a year, it could be worth it, because as you get later in the life of the truck, I mean, I'll give you one example, that something that not as common with the 21, but still possible. Front timing cover leak. You're just over 60,000 miles and it starts leaking, and now that's a big repair. Sure, you can drive the truck with it without leak, but it really depends on how picky you are. If you're picky about everything and you want everything to be absolutely perfect, then get the extended warranty. It'll pay for itself if it's a good warranty and you are on top of the truck and you have a good mechanic that checks the car and doesn't just see a leak and decide, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. You need to have a trusted mechanic, because I see so many people have a warranty and then the mechanic that services their cars is just careless and doesn't check right. And now all of a sudden they're out of the extended warranty and somebody checks the car well, and oh my God, you have all these problems. I'm like, well, I had a warranty. But so it really depends how picky you are. What are your expectations of the truck? Do you want everything to be perfect all the time? You're willing to live with a few things that are not big but annoyances, like radio has a problem, seat makes a little bit of noise, small stuff. We're not talking about big stuff. But all I can tell you is $2,250 for a good warranty that covers at least 10 years, maybe 125,000 miles. That's a good price. I understand pushes it to your budget, but that's the decision where you have to make based on what your situation is. So, Keith Dennis, thank you so much for your super chat, sir. I appreciate it. Christopher Vasquez, thank you for your super chat. Toyota Prius C, C1, C2, C3, C4, any comments? So, they're all options. They're all option packages. If, you know, there is not much options in the Prius C. The Prius C is more of a very economy, very bare bones car. when you get up in the options, you're going to get better wheels, better radio, smart key, where it's a touch button start, not a physical key. But really, don't overpay for the high options, because the Prius C is a very basic car, and even when you fully option it out, it's still a very basic car. So if you don't care much for the alloy wheels, you don't mind the hubcaps, which really, it's not a big deal. Smart key is nice, but it's not the end of the world, especially in an entry-level hybrid like that. Uh, Otherwise, they're all the same mechanically. There's nothing different. You're not getting a better car if you go with a fully optioned one or base model. But just look at the options. Do you really want these options? Then they're worth it. If not, go with the bare bones one, because it'll still have backup camera. Well, actually, some of the first ones didn't, but the newer ones will have backup cameras, still have all power windows, power locks, all this stuff. But it's not going to have the fancier radio, smart key, maybe leather interior, alloy wheels. I mean, if the price is too big, alloy wheels, you can really add them later. But stuff like smart key and this stuff, you won't be able to add later. Okay. So Neil Leia says, can I use 5W30 oil grade even if it's not Toyota brand? Folks, you can use any oil you want as long as it's a good oil and it meets the specifications for that year and model. But you want to use a good brand of oil that you have a good experience with, or just don't buy generic oil that you don't know where it came from. Just make sure it's a good known brand. So Gene says 2017 Tundra did the fuel pump recall. Original full fill up shows 550 miles. Right after new pump, the last fill up shows 475 miles to go. Why the decrease? There's a lot of factors that could affect that. I doubt that it has to do with the fuel pump itself, but try to fill up the tank, give it a few fill ups. Look at the weather. Did anything change? If you went 4, 5, 6 fill ups and you're noticing that the capacity is dropping, have the dealership take a look. Doesn't hurt. But as far as the fuel pump itself, it shouldn't cause any issues. Even if things go south, you're going to have running problems. You're going to have check engine light. You're going to have leaks, flat leaks. But as far as just the fuel pump job affecting the range, it shouldn't. But it could be a coincidence that the weather changed, something else changed, or it just needs to reset. Drive it for a few fill-ups and see if it continues. If not, have a dealership take a look. It wouldn't hurt. So Jake, any recommendations of the braking period of a new Tacoma? Just really, if you really want to take it to the next level on braking, do a braking oil change at 1,000 miles, everybody will say, no, you don't need it. Well, you know what? Oil's cheap. It wouldn't hurt. I've seen the amount of metal the new engines have, which is normal, nothing to worry about. But I would feel more comfortable if you get that metal debris out and be done. It wouldn't hurt anything. If it can't hurt anything, it can make things better or not do anything. So I will be willing to take my chances on it doing potentially better for the engine in the long run. So other than that, really just keep up with the maintenance, take care of it, and take it easy the first break in the braking period. Read your owner's manual on that. I also have a video on that, and yeah, everything will be good. So another question here, HP Paramo says 2012 Sienna parasite battery drain, possible solutions. So one thing I will say about that generation Sienna, when you say parasitic draw on the battery, these Siennas always drew a lot more than your average Toyota. And that was around the time when things started going up. These cars drained more than the previous models. One thing I would do is a standard pull fuses until you find which fuse it is. If you have any aftermarket accessories, disconnect them. If you have, make sure all your lights are off. Some of these Siennas, the back lights by the door, you can't really easily see them. If you forget one, it's going to obviously drain everything. But as far as something concrete on that, they do drain the battery faster. That's by design, unfortunately. If you leave the van undriven for a while, it's going to drain the battery. But you want to still check for the parasitic draw itself, see exactly how much, and then pull fuses, see which one drops it to lower, and then investigate that circuit. So let's take the next question here. So Tim says, would there ever be any need to use fuel injector on a 2.5 at some point? So I'm assuming you mean the fuel injector cleaner. It depends on your driving, because folks, even though this engine has direct and port, and it should resolve the issue of the carboning up, you could still carbon these up. I've seen cars that don't have direct injections that get carboned up pretty bad, worse than direct injection cars, because it depends on your driving. What carbons up engines always is going to be your short drives. Start the car, back it out of the driveway, shut it off. That over time will cause carbon buildup. Bad quality fuel. You go buying the cheapest fuel there is around town, which happens to be the worst, and then you top it off with short trips, overall bad maintenance, oil that is old, and now all of this contributes to the carboning up. So fuel injection is a maintenance. Fuel injection cleaner or induction cleaner, that's a maintenance. That is not a solution for problems. So if you already have a problem with carbon, that ain't gonna help. You have to go in physically, in person by hand and clean the carbon. But as far as maintenance, if you drive short trips all the time, you're not really going on the highway a lot, it would help maybe every 30, 40,000 miles, run the induction service and call it a day and hope for the best, really. Some of them don't even work. God honest truth. Depends on the product itself. But if they are a good product, they will work, but they don't do miracles either. That's what I want you to take from this. So Dana, thank you so much for your super chat. Should I do a transmission drain and fill or a flush at 53,000 miles? Just bought 2015 Toyota Avalon. Also, is it okay to do a coolant flush at 53K? And how often should you do a drain and fill? So as far as the transmission goes, you're at 53,000 miles and the car is a 15. So you're right around the 6-year mark. I would do a drain and fill. You could do a flush, but just make sure when you do a flush, you got to check the fluid level afterwards, and it should be okay. There's no problem. You're within time. After that, every 60,000 miles or 6 years, whichever comes first, that puts you right at the safe zone where you're keeping everything maintained and life is good. As far as the coolant, you can replace it at any time, but the recommendation, the first replacement is 5 years or 100,000 miles. After that, every 5 years or 50,000 miles. So you ideally would need to replace the coolant at this point. It's nothing expensive, nothing difficult. Both of them are very DIY. I have videos for both of them, how to bleed the coolant on that 2GR and the transmission that is sealed. Nothing sealed about it, just doesn't have a dipstick, by the way. But yeah, go ahead and do these two maintenances and everything is good. And congratulations on your new car. So, Jamie, thank you so much for your super chat. Have a 2013 Camry with 70,000 miles. Took it to a dealership, changed trans fluid. They told me they flushed the fluid. That is a proper procedure. So, flush is okay, especially at a dealership. I hope the dealership will do things right. They not always do, but if you have a good experience with that dealership, that should be good. The only thing is, when you use a flush machine, sometimes it adds too much fluid or it takes too much fluid. So you end up with a level that's not right. You're not going to see any problems if it was overfilled, but if it was underfilled, you're going to have problems. So what I recommend you do is ask them, are you going to check the fluid level afterwards? If they say yes, hold them accountable to that. If you drive the car and there's no problems afterwards, life is good. You got nothing to worry about. But if you have problems, take it back. Don't wait. This is something that I see people do. They have problems and they wait. The longer you wait, the less chances the dealership are of taking responsibility of things. So have them do it. There's no problem with a flush, especially at a dealership. They should do this very often. In a lot of cars, if they have a problem, they're going to have many problems, and it's not like an independent shop that maybe will do one Toyota and then the next 10 cars are not. Dealership will only work on Toyotas. So I would go ahead and get that flush done. And if you have any issues afterwards, take it back to them right away. So Excel says, thank you for your super chat, sir. Is it possible to have an aftermarket remote starter installed on a 2020 Highlander L that won't shut off the engine when the door is open? So that's a very good question. You can, but that will be an intrusive remote start. And what I mean by intrusive, see, most of the remote start companies, they figure out the way to basically piggyback an original remote starter from Toyota and just custom wire. Like they'll take one from an old Camry with a smart key, or even without the smart key, and they'll custom wire it to adapt it to any car we have. So it's gonna, and then custom wire it to work with that long range remote. That is actually the best way to do this. So you have minimal wire cutting and intrusiveness to the electrical system of the car, and the system is designed to work with these cars. Yes, there's some customization, but nothing crazy. But in order, the way the Toyota remote start works is as soon as you open the door, car shuts off. That's the limitation of the smart key system. I know it doesn't make sense. A lot of manufacturers don't do it like that, but that's how Toyota land works. So you can get a remote start that is completely off-the-shelf aftermarket, even the module that it has, but they are typically harder to install, more expensive, and they're more intrusive. So I understand that opening the door, when you open the door, the engine shutting off can be annoying, but trust me, if that is the only price you have to pay for the minimal invasiveness to the car when we're installing these aftermarket accessories, that's a good price to pay. And I would take that, and I encourage you to think about it and consider it, because that is the best thing for the car. But if this is absolutely a deal breaker, then yes, you can go with an aftermarket remote starter that just does everything on its own, where you open the door, the car runs, it'll only shut off when you press the brake pedal. Eric Dyer, thank you so much for your super chat, sir. 2020 RAV4 hybrid, 45K miles, battery cooling fan has ran twice. One instance of no EV, as car would restart every time a gas pedal is touched. So I'm trying to understand your question here. I'm assuming, let me read that again. Battery cooling fan has ran twice. One instance of no EV, as car would restart every time the gas pedal is touched. When you say the engine, I'm guessing you mean the engine is restarted. The fan, look, the fan will run on and off, and you'll have it kind of ramp up sometimes and it'll come down. That is normal operation as long as you don't have warning messages. Or if you have a warning message like hybrid system malfunction, check engine light, and your fan is running all the time, blaring, there might be an issue. Some of the newer models will actually tell you that there's an over temperature in the battery where you need service. In that case, the filter is probably clogged. But the only thing I would do in your case is look at the filter. Is it clogged? That's the first thing you want to know, because it's trying to cool it and it can't take air. It's just going to ramp the speed of the fan. But other than that, that's the only thing I would check first. All right. So Fizz Out says, suggestions for parking brake that wouldn't hold the 2009 Venza on inclines. Cables, shoes, hardware replaced and adjusted many times by two mechanics, but still no dice. Rear rotors also changed. Cable not slack, immediate engagement, but doesn't grip on the inclines. So what you want to do here is make sure that they're actually adjusting it right, because it should be able to hold it. The other thing is, you did mention that the shoes have been replaced. Were they original? Are they installed right? That's where I would progress with this. It should be able to hold it. You should never need to adjust the cable itself. If the cable was not misadjusted and completely out of whack, you shouldn't need to adjust the cable. You should just need to adjust the shoes, bring them out where they're very close. You have a slight drag and life is good. But if you have a problem with the shoes, the way they're installed, that will cause issues. And now you need to adjust the cable, and now everything is just completely out and it's not going to hold the car. And there's an adjustment of the cable at the pedal itself, the floor pedal. You might want to look at that, because most people adjust it elsewhere and now things get all over the place. But if you're pushing the pedal, like that foot pedal on the driver's seat, when you push it down, is it going all the way down, or is it just 3 clicks and stops? That's your first indication, because if the cable there is loose, it'll barely pull, and now you have a problem. No matter how much you adjust the back, the front is loose. So check the adjustment at the pedal. Make sure everything is installed in, like the shoes and the hardware, everything is installed properly there. So Vicia, thank you so much for your super chat. 05 Prius odometer stopped on 299,999 miles. What should I do to fix it? Well, first, congratulations for reaching 300,000 miles on your 05 Prius. Second, there is no fixing that. That is a limitation with these old odometers. And this is not just the Prius. There are many models around that year range that stop at 299,000 miles. It almost feels like Toyota was trying to tell you, when you get to 300,000 miles, you have reached the end of the life of your car, which is way far from what they thought. This is just my estimation, but yeah, they do stop at that. I don't understand why. There are some, the newer models don't. You can keep going after that. But unfortunately, the only way to fix that, not really fix it, you'll never see one of these over that mile range, but get a different odometer. Unfortunately, it'll drop down, and you just have to document it. So if you ever sell the car, you know the actual miles, but otherwise, it doesn't really affect the car or the function of the car. It just won't stop counting, won't count past that, and that's by design. There's nothing you can do about that. So Alfredo Cabanillas, I'm trying to read your name right. Sorry there, sir, if I didn't. Any recommendations for CHR 2020 Limited speed control door lock? You're going to want to be a little bit more specific on that, because I don't know speed control door lock. Oh, okay. I think I understand what you mean. So that is an option that you can change in the cluster itself. If it doesn't work, and if I remember correctly, some of them had an issue with that. It might have been a RAV4. You had to disconnect the battery and reconnect it, and then it'll work. Try that. But try in the radio, where you can change the options, the vehicle customization. I'm trying to remember here off memory. If not, have the dealership take a look. They should be able to go in the scan tool and change it for you. So Descending God says, hey man, are you excited about the IS 500? Can't wait. I am very excited. You know what? The IS 500 was kind of a surprise, because I thought we were going to do away with V8s, and here's the IS. Hey, let's put this biggest engine we shouldn't be having in the smallest car we have. That was kind of a surprise, actually. But hey, I love V8s. I hope they're still around if the EPA would let us. But fortunately, with all the emission stuff, we have to be getting away from the V8s here. So let's see here. Oop, my chat jumped. So you guys, I actually have a question for you before we continue. So I always go in order on the live stream. I go in order of the questions. Do you guys want me just to go random, so everybody would get a chance? Maybe, you know, because there's a lot of questions. Obviously, I can't get to them in all the time, but in the time that we have. But let me know, and I will go back and read the chat later, because I just can't keep up with it. It's too fast for me. Gene Edmonds, thank you so much, man. Oliver, hi, AMD. Good Sunday. Good Sunday to you too, sir. Thank you for joining the live stream. On my new 4Runner, throughout the chassis welding seam, I noticed a thin line of yellowish flare. Though it could be rust, any idea what it is? Have applied FF inside now, fluid film. So some of these will have, like, even when we get them new, you'll have a little bit of surface rust, just water splashing on a little seam that didn't get 100% painted. Things happen like that, but I'm not worried about it, especially with that fluid film that you put in. It's probably in my, I'd have to see a picture to know for sure, but in my estimation, it might be just a little bit of surface rust from water splash, whatever the case may be. Remember, that 4Runner is crossing the sea. So sea, with all the seawater and coming on the carrier, it's going to have a little bit of surface rust, and that's normal. Nothing to be concerned about. But you did good. You covered it up. Jerwin Tabor, thank you so much for your super chat, sir. All right, so we got Francis Kuhn here. Congratulations on your first year anniversary. Thank you very much, Francis. I appreciate it. Should I change and fill my 2016 Tacoma transmission fluid, or do flush? If you're on time, you can do a flush. You can do a drain and fill. If you're a little bit over time, I would do just a drain and fill. Drain and fill is always safe. Flush is okay if you're doing it on time and you're not over miles. James, greetings, AMD. How you doing, James? I'm glad to see you here. What would you like to see the upcoming redesign Tacoma? Sorry, I already answered. I think I read another one. Let's see here. Blake, anything to avoid in a 12 to 15 Tacoma? They're really good. That generation Tacoma is to me in the same level as the 4Runner in ancientness and how reliable they are. But there's one thing that kills these, and same thing with the 4Runner, unfortunately, rust. Rust really doesn't do, they really don't do well with rust, probably worse than the 4Runner. Make sure if you buy one with good maintenance and no rust. Or if you have no choice but the rusty ones, make sure it's one that's been washed, not washed once every 2 years. That wouldn't be good. Check the frame very well because these hide the holes very well and you hide the rot in the frame. So check that frame very well. Look for maintenance. Otherwise, they do have their things here and there. No car is perfect, but overall, that is a very good truck. And I would highly recommend anyone buy it as long as you do your due diligence in the inspection. So running at altitude, 2007 Toyota Corolla, and when coming to a stop, lurches forward, wondering if this might be a transmission issue. Honestly, this is a common one, and it's normal. It's a transmission downshifting. When it shifts to first, it just does that thing. A lot of people have complained about it, but I just don't want you spending your money on something that is normal. Just letting you know that. But I know what you mean exactly. But that's just one thing that might help is having your brakes in tip-top shape. One thing about the 07 Corollas, they love for the rear brakes to go out of adjustment. Adjust the rear brakes, try it, because it'll actually increase the braking force where you won't feel that jump anymore as much, at least. Rob G, thank you so much, sir. Good to see you. Let's see. So Sean G, this is a good question, guys. Listen to this one. I purchased a new 2021 Toyota Tundra TRD Sport. I absolutely love the truck, but noticed shortly after purchase that the headliner does not fit completely on the driver's side door pillar and jam. Things happen. And I understand when you buy a new truck, you paid a small fortune. It is within every right that it should be perfect. But things happen. Because remember, it is assembled by humans and inspected by humans. What I would do there, Sean, is take it back to the dealership. I don't see a reason why you should be upset at the dealership for missing this. Things happen. They can't inspect every little inch of the truck, but it shouldn't be an issue. They will take care of it. As far as having to replace a whole headliner, we'll replace the whole headliner. Things do happen like that. They're very annoying, but whenever you notice things on your new truck, the sooner you take it in, the better. There's nothing common that I will tell you that, oh, this is a common one where they always mess it up like that. No, but it's not as, how would I say this? It's not a major concern that I have that this truck was misbuilt or there's a big problem, or it's usually fit and finish stuff are very common and they do happen. Things you can never get things 100%. You get very close, but things like that's a fit and finish, take it back to the dealership. They'll have no problem taking care of it. Shouldn't give you a hard time because it's something you see. So does my 2020 Corolla LE have the transmission with the launch gear? Yes. 2020 Corolla sedan and the 2019 and up Corolla hatchback had the CVT with the first gear on launch. So, Jorge, hi, and God bless you. God bless you too, Thor. Thank you very much. Can you please cover the transmission fluid change on the 2GR FEs? So, two possible transmissions. One of them is the one with the dipstick. That one is very simple. Drain, put fluid, start the car, check the fluid with the dipstick while it's running. If you have a sealed transmission, I do have a video for that. So I would go ahead and find it in the playlist, find it in the videos that I have. I've done it a while back, and I'll walk you through step by step how to do the sealed transmission fluid. So Mafusa says, why are the rear speakers on a 2021 Camry volume so low, non-GBL? So the rear speakers are usually small in these new cars, and they're getting smaller and smaller. Biggest one was the Prius C, which a lot of people complain about and didn't have rear speakers. That was interesting. You do want to adjust the fade. I'm guessing you've done that. The fade and balance. Adjust that, kind of prioritize for the back. But yes, the speakers in these cars, especially the back ones, are smaller and they're not as loud as the front. We're noticing that more and more as we go. So Vital Nomad, thank you so much for your super chat. My 2016 Camry is missing the body plugs on one side. Is there a risk of salt getting in, causing rust from the inside out? There is, but it's not something that I would be very concerned where, oh my God, the car is damaged, that's it, we need a new one. Just install them, and that will minimize your chance of things. Because here's something about salt, road salt. If you have a crystal of salt that just sits there, it's not going to cause issues. But when you splash that salt with water consistently, it's going to melt and going to go in every little place, and that's when the rust will start. I recently had a 1997, and I'll share this with you, and I actually should have taken a picture of this to share it with you guys. 1997 Toyota Camry from Illinois. It's spent its entire life in Illinois, but it's never been to our dealership. It came in for something or another, check engine light, whatever. I'm looking at it, and it has no body plugs. I mean, that entire section where the body plug is was just completely rotten. But again, we're talking about a 1997 Camry. That's a long time, but that whole thing was gone. I mean, you couldn't even lift it from that spot where the body plug was. So install the body plug, everything will be good. Whatever rust has occurred, it's going to be sealed in, and it's not going to continue. If you want to really take it to the next level, take a little bit of fluid film, spray it on the inside, and then seal it up, and life is good. By the way, for those that wonder about the body plugs, you can buy the body plugs from the dealership. They're extremely difficult to find. You're going to need that veteran parts guy that will look it up, but it is possible to buy them. If you bought a car, notice they don't have them and they're not in the glove box, that is a part you can buy. It's just part of the body. But just get ready, because the parts department will have very hard time finding them. They're buried in the parts catalog. So CTP Awesome 2016 Highlander. When I drive in cold conditions, I can hear a whine noise from the engine bay. I've used the mechanic stethoscope, and it seems to be my idler pulleys. It's possible, but if you're driving in cold engine, that 2GR-FE is whining and loud, and noise travels in a way in these engines that could be confusing. You hear it here, it's actually in the alternator or the tensioner, or any noise that, especially in cold weather, from the engine, from that 2GR, that goes away when it warms up, I'm not very concerned about. The best way to really isolate this one is take the belt, spin all the idlers, all the pulleys, make sure none of them has significant play or make noise when you spin them. That's the best way to check these. So let's see here. Haha, this is a good one. Peter, just to let you know, I was actually refused an oil change by a Toyota dealer because I wanted the oil change in my new Tacoma too soon. Odometer was at 4,000 miles. Let me clarify this, because many people have been asking about this. Toyotas that are sold with the free maintenance plan. Here's the free maintenance plan. Let's just explain it, and we're all on the same page on that. The first service at 5,000 miles is a tire rotation only. The second service at 10,000 miles is an oil change and a tire rotation. The third service at 15,000 miles is a tire rotation and cleaning of the cabin filter in models that are equipped. Some models will get a cabin filter at 10,000 miles, and then a brake inspection. At 20,000 miles, you're going to get oil change, tire rotation. Models that are required will get a cabin filter. At 25,000 miles, you're only getting a tire rotation, a handshake, and hopefully we'll see you in the next service. That's the maintenance plan. And the reason they don't allow you to do it earlier is because you're not paying for this. It's a pre-programmed program that Toyota is paying for under warranty. And if you want to deviate from that, you got to pay for it. If you want an oil change at 5,000 miles, they will rotate the tires. You pay for the oil change. If you want an oil change every 1,000 miles, you pay for it until you get to 10,000, then they pay for it until you get to 20,000, and then they pay for it. Dealerships are playing a big, horrible part in this by pushing people that are trying to take care of their cars. You are the customer. You are the owner of the car. It is your decision how to maintain that car. If you come in the dealership and you want an oil change at 200 miles, the dealership within their realm of right will tell you, aren't you doing this a little bit too early? If you say, well, I feel more comfortable doing a break-in oil change, okay, your car, your money, you're aware, that's it. Do what the customer says. I don't understand dealerships that play heroes when yesterday, and I'll give you a prime example of this, folks. Yesterday, I have a dear friend, and I will call her a sister as well, has a 14 Corolla that now has 130,000 miles. She came in for an oil change. And actually, it was, and surprisingly, I will tell you exactly which 14 Corolla it is. The one I used in my how to do an oil change video. I did the last oil change. Comes in, and I told her last time, this car is burning oil because the oil I drained was not 4.4 quarts. She comes in, I drained the oil, 1.2 quarts came out of 4.4. She never checked it. I understand. She's not really into cars, but that sparked my interest. I told her, you know what? I'm going to look at the service history of your car from day one. Let's just understand here. You're telling me you did oil changes around 5,000 miles, and then you're burning oil 103 at a rapid rate. Maybe not over a quart every 1,000 miles, but that's a lot. You're reaching 5,000 miles with almost 75% of your capacity gone. Well, I look at the service history. First oil change, 13,000 miles. Second oil change, 19,000 miles. Okay, that's better. Third oil change, I think it was 29 or 30,000 miles. The first oil, I am telling you, do the oil change at 1,000 miles. Then every 5,000. First oil change was done on 13,000 miles in 1 year. That is not good. And here is the result of that. Now, at 100,000 miles, here's this beautiful 14 Corolla burning oil on an engine that otherwise has no tendency to burn oil, is not known for these problems, but it is hemorrhaging oil out of the tailpipe. That's the problem with these. And folks, you take charge. When the dealership tells you you have to pay for it, understand that, yes, they're not trying to rob you. This is how the free maintenance works. But you got to take care of your car. They will just follow the book. You will follow protecting your pocket. Oil is cheap. Do your oil changes on time. Do the break-in oil change. Not required, but highly recommended. Do it every 5,000 miles and play it safe. That's all I'm saying. And look, some people will say, well, I sent my oil for analysis and they said it's A-okay. Well, guess what? I am doing a video on that and we'll see how A-okay that is. I'm not saying anything, not saying they're bad or good, but I'll find out and I'll give you proof of whether they're good or bad, the oil analysis people. I'm not a scientist. I look at the cars that come in with no oil all the time, and that's the info I'm trying to give you here. So, Jordanos Adgo, thank you so much for your super chat. The question is, should I buy a new 2021 Toyota Corolla ES or Toyota Camry ES Special Edition 2016 with 80,000 miles in good condition? Now, I always recommend you, if you're in between two cars, one of them is new, one of them is used, I will always veer you toward the new one. But in this case, you're comparing two different cars. For the price of the Toyota Corolla new, you're looking at a 16 Camry. Two different cars. Camry obviously is bigger. Corolla is smaller. However, that's a new car versus a car that is 4 or 5 years old and has 80,000 miles. Mechanically speaking, of course, the new car will be better. You take care of it from day one. It's going to last a lot longer. However, Size-wise, the Camry, of course, is a bigger car. It's going to have more function. So it comes down to, can you stretch your budget to buy a new Camry instead of that new Corolla, and instead of going with a used car? It's up to you. There's nothing wrong with a used car. Just do your due diligence. And I don't know how a 16 Camry costs the same as a new Corolla. That is a red flag. Maybe I misunderstood your question. They don't cost the same. You're just looking at these two options. But in my book, the 16 Camry, excellent car if it's been taken care of. It's one that I highly recommend. The 2020 Corolla as well, but the size is different. So it really depends on your need there. So Omar Alvarado, thank you so much for your super chat. I have a 2008 Lexus RX 350 and the dashboard has many cracks. Any aftermarket solutions you recommend? So the aftermarket solutions, you can't buy a whole dash aftermarket, but you can talk to upholstery shops. Now, this could get too expensive where you're actually spending more than buying a new one. If they still make it, they might not still make a whole dash for it. But talk to two people. First, upholstery shops. Some of them will be able to just reupholster the dash, and life's good, to any color or material you want, and the price will reflect that. But another thing is, you can talk to, there's mobile, like leather repair, interior repair guys that will come out to your place and they'll fix the cracks. You won't even be able to tell. They do wonderful work. That is more of your budget option, and probably will be the option that won't last the longest. You expect it to be cracking again in 4 years. But the best solution, of course, to go buy a brand new dash. That's likely the most expensive. Second option, go to an upholstery shop, see what they can do. Third option, find a mobile repair where they can repair it, and life is good. Those are really the only alternatives to just replacing the whole dash. So let's take the next question. So Mustafa says, do you recommend transmission differential fluid oil change on a 19 RAV4 with 35,000 miles? I would replace the differential. I don't know if this is hybrid or not. If it's not hybrid, replace the transfer case. If it's all-wheel drive, replace the transfer case and differential fluid at 30,000. If it's not all-wheel drive, then just the transmission at 60,000, 6 years, and you're all good. Okay. So Yahya says, and this is a good question, I think. Thank you for the great video. Thank you for watching, sir. I really appreciate it. So a question about the hybrids like the Sienna. How do they maintain good highway fuel economy if eventually the battery will be depleted due to lack of regenerative braking? So here's how that's going to happen, how that's going to work. They could, when the battery level drops to a certain point, they could start using the engine to drive the car and supply power to the battery, so they could charge and drive at the same time. And the reason they get great gas mileage on the highway, and the reason why any car gets great gas mileage on the highway, is very simple. Cars like engines or drivetrains are not at high load when you're cruising at a steady speed on the highway. The biggest load on a car, and this goes back to simple physics, is when you take off. That moving that car from a stationary state to a moving state takes the most power to do that. And that's why hybrids get great gas mileage in the city, because that most load, that takeoff, they usually try to use electric power to get the car moving. Once the car is rolling, it takes a lot less effort to increase its speed. So at the highway, you have very minimal. That's why they always, the saying that they say, oh, this car has miles. It's all highway miles. Highway miles are easy miles on the car. Maybe not easy on the brakes, on the tires, because they're always rolling, but they're easy on the drivetrain because you're just putting very little power just to keep the car going, not trying to move it from a standstill. So that's how they maintain this high mile, because they're using very little power, and when they need to charge the battery, they could use the engine to do that, and that's the beauty of hybrids. So, guys, at this point, I actually have to cut the live stream a little shorter than usual. I will take a few questions. I'll go around randomly in the questions here. Let's see. Okay, here's a good one. So the Dreamer says, "Have you ever worked on an LFA? I know they don't sell well, but they are now worth a fortune." I personally have not worked on an LFA. I've seen a few in person, but have not personally worked on them. I know a few guys at Lexus Land that do specialize in the LFA. But the thing about the LFA is it is reliable. That's the crazy part. They don't really see them for a lot of problems, maybe because they're rare, but they don't see them. The only thing with the LFA is that a small story I'll share with you, is they had a recall on the airbag. You have to pull the dashboard out. Well, long story short, Lexus did not trust technicians that they were going to take this $400,000 car apart and not have any issues. So they just sent a team from Japan that took the car apart, placed their airbag, put the car back together. Very interesting, and I would have loved to see that in person, but it did happen. There were some pictures that surfaced of the dash out, because when they were doing that recall, some technician took a picture and shared the picture in a closed group. But yes, I don't have personal experience with the LFA working on them, but I can imagine it's a little nerve-wracking when you're racking up a car that if you damage the body, we're talking about multi-$1,000 repair. That's not a good day. Oh, sorry, I was lifting an LFA and the rack slipped and it put a hole in the carbon fiber body. That's not a good day for any dealership and any technician. So wish to work on them one day. That would be nice. So no, Scott, thank you so much for your super chat, sir. Good evening and God bless. With the trend of lowering oil grades for fuel economy purposes, 0W20, now 0W16, should we be concerned with wear and reliability? So no, you should not. And the reason for that is they are not going to just, these oils, the lightweight oils, they're not just, oh, we used to have an engine that uses 5W30. Let's just put 0W16 and that's it. There's a lot of testing and engineering behind that, not just let's throw it at it and hope for the best. That's why when they recommend a specific oil, they approved that engine for this weight of oil. Yes, it is thinner oil, but they are changing tolerances. They are changing everything. They are testing these engines for that low oil weight. And by the way, 0W16 is not the lowest. There is 0W8. It's out, and it's only a matter of time before we see it in the United States. Always stick with the recommended oil in the manufacturer. Sometimes some engines will give you a range. If you're within this temperature, use this oil. If you're within this temperature, these are the engines that they saw that if you use this weight in this temperature, you could have issues, so they give you these options. But some engines, like the A25A and the dynamic force engines in general, they were approved, at least in the United States. This seemed to be a debate across the world because some owner's manual is stating other things. But in the United States, it clearly says 0W16 for all temperature ranges. That means this engine did not have issues with that oil at all temperature ranges. I wouldn't be concerned with wear and reliability. I would be more concerned with intervals of maintenance. That is the essential thing here, and the kind of oil that you are using. Everybody has I don't want to use this word, but I feel like I must, an obsession with using better stuff for their cars. Folks, when it comes to Toyota, I don't know about others, when it comes to Toyota, their fluids, their original equipment fluids are very good. And I personally, in the Toyotas that I have owned, I've always used original fluids, not a single fluid that is not original. Brake fluid, yeah. Power steering fluid, yes. But engine oil and transmission oil, never used anything other than the Toyota branded stuff. See them behind me. That's what I use and that's what I trust. Never had a single issue because of those fluids. I don't understand people's push to spend more money, buy these exotic products, and assume that they are better than the original. They could be, but it could be all in vain because you're really not gaining anything. You're trying to protect something that's already protected by the original fluid. Now you're just spending more to protect it more for nothing. Do you catch my drift here? See where I'm going with this? It's like, yeah, you can buy this expensive oil filter that has this much better filtering capacity, but do you need it? That's the question. So I would stick with OEM. Don't worry about the lower weights. They're not just thrown in there just for people. Yes, they are essentially for fuel economy, but they didn't just throw this thin oil and it'll make it past warranty and they'll be fine. They'll blow up afterwards. That's on the customer. No, that's not the case. They do test these oils. They do make sure that this engine will have the same reliability with this thin oil than it did with the thick oil. And if it doesn't, then they're going to make changes to the tolerances, to everything to accommodate for that. So don't worry about that part. All right, so I'm going to take, let's say, 3 last questions. And I'm going to go at the end here and see some of the other questions that I didn't get to. So here's a good one. I have a 2021 Corolla Hybrid. What's the maximum speed you can switch to B mode? Is it bad if I switch to B mode from highway speeds? So, Robert, the thing about B mode, I don't recall reading anything about a maximum speed or you can engage it, but I wouldn't engage B mode unless you're going down a hill and you're pressing the brakes and you're starting to feel like you need more braking. Even in that case, because remember, in hybrids, and this is the debated thing about B mode, in hybrids, you are using regenerative braking. So when you're going down a hill and you slam on your brakes, most of that force that is braking the car is your regenerative braking. The only case where you will really need to use B mode is if you've used so much of that regenerative braking that the battery is not going to accept any more charge because the computer cut it out. It reached the maximum that it's comfortable letting the battery charge. It's going to disengage regenerative braking. We're no longer doing regen. It's 100% hydraulic. In that case, you need B mode. Otherwise, I would never use B mode. Flat and simple. I'm getting to that point. Because here's the problem, and this also applies to non-hybrids. If you downshift the transmission, or if you're driving a manual transmission, you stop with the transmission, like you downshift into a lower gear to stop it. Folks, the brakes cost a fraction of the cost of a transmission, a clutch. That's the problem. Or in the case of hybrids, an engine. So always use your brakes first. Use your B mode when you're going downhill, but not excessively, not at all. So I hope that gives you a better idea with B mode. You're good to use it at highway speeds, but not unless you're going downhill. I wouldn't really use it. All right, let's take the second to last question here. So, MacBook Pro, 2021 Tacoma V6 purchased last month. I've got a whine on acceleration. It seems more gear dependent than speed dependent. Is there an issue, or is it a characteristics of the Tacoma? So the Tacoma does have a whiny drivetrain when you drive. It's not excessive, but if everything is off, fan is off, radio is off, you're going to hear it a little bit. But it's a new truck. You noticed it. I'm not sitting next to you hearing it. So the best thing I would recommend to you is swing by the dealership, have them take it for a drive, listen to it, be on the safe side. But I am almost sure this is a normal characteristics. They do have a small whine in specific gears. It's not the most insulated drivetrain. It's a little bit on the ancient side when it comes to the transmission. So you're good, but to be on the safe side, have them take a look. All right, folks, let's take the last question. And I always take the last question because the last is always first. So, Cubs Cubes, is the Mirai worth it? Here is that's a very good question there. I have no idea. I've seen a Mirai, sat in one, but I've never really worked on one. I love the concept of the Mirai because it's essentially, look, I'm old school when it comes to cars and electric cars specifically. Uh, I just like to stop at the gas station, fill it up with whatever, and be on my way in 5 minutes. Electric cars, that's the one thing that I haven't gotten past. But the Mirai essentially have the same thing. If we have the infrastructure, um, it is essentially that you can stop at a gas station, fill it up with whatever, and it takes a few minutes, and then be on your way. That's the same concept. Through the channels, I don't work on them because they're not sold in my area, but through the channels of Toyota technicians, we don't hear a lot of issues about them. But again, they're very limited numbers, and Toyota's kind of all over them. Whatever problem they have, they just jump in and take care of it. So I wish they would sell them more, but the problem is the infrastructure. There's no hydrogen gas stations everywhere, like regular gas stations, and I wonder why that is. No conspiracy theory there, but we'll see. I hope they become more mainstream. They're a great idea, and in my personal opinion, they're better than electric cars. Sorry if somebody likes electric cars and that offends them, but that's my opinion. Because there's just nothing better than stopping at a gas station and just put the thing 2 minutes, have a nice day, go to the gas station, buy yourself some expired cookies, and life is good. There's nothing better than that, in my opinion, when you're going on a long trip. So, all right, guys. So I'm going to have to cut this live stream a little shorter. I know the last time I think we did the same thing, but one thing, let's talk about a few things on the channel. I have a new series on how plug-in hybrids work. I hope you guys are liking that. This is going to be a 5-part series. We're going to talk about the RAV4 Prime in the last 2 episodes of the series. The 3rd episode, we're going to talk about the world's second most complicated HVAC system, which is going to be the heat pump. I went into details, kind of like the planetary. If you've seen that last video, if you haven't, I encourage you to see it after this one. We're going to go into the planet, just like we went into the planetary in that diagram. We're going to go the same in the heat pump. You're going to understand exactly how they work and what changed and how the world's most complicated HVAC system, which is in the RAV4 Prime, is really the world's most complicated HVAC. And if you own a RAV4 Prime, just open the hood and look at the AC lines and you'll know what I mean. Once you understand them, though, they start to make a little bit more sense. They seem a lot more complicated than they actually are. They're just kind of twisting the science a little bit to make them work better, and that's what the heat pump system is. And I do have some DIY videos shot up. They're going to be actually after the series wraps up. And I wanted to ask you guys, and I'll read the chat replies. I'm trying to look at things live right now, but let me actually change it to live. I think that's how it works. There we go. Now we're live. So, did you guys like the A25A, the assembly of the engine from start to finish in picture format and narrative? I have another one for a 2GR. Not exactly the same, but for a front timing cover job. If you guys like it, let me know and I'll put it together and it'll be out. I just wanted to get kind of feedback on how you guys like the picture format of the engine big assemblies. So obviously I'm filming these at work, not filming, taking pictures, but I can give you a narrative. They're very clear pictures, and actually you can almost get kind of a DIY. I don't know if you want to DIY an engine drop out of a cradle drop, a frame drop out of the any of these cars that has a 2GR, but it's out, it's available, I can do it. I just want to hear you guys' feedback. Another thing is, you might notice I told you I was going to do some maintenance on my, what is it called? My S-Class, my Mercedes, the disaster. But I have some news on that. Things did not go very well with that. I was gathering the parts, trying to get that video going because you guys said yes. And then the car got in an accident. That's the best part. Life's good. It's mechanical damage, so we're good. The car is okay. I ran over something on the highway. Driving on the highway, car here, car here. Here's a big lumbering piece of metal right in the middle of the road. Ripped the whole bottom of the car. So we're fighting with the insurance right now to get the car, to get the repair okayed. And then after that, when I am able to drive the car again, we'll film that. So that'll be a while, and we'll see. And I'm still debating. I am going back and forth on what car I'm going to buy. And folks, it's so hard for me to buy a car because I'm extremely picky with cars. I drive all these cars every single day, and I'm going back and forth on the RAV4 Prime. Went back and forth on the 4Runner. I don't know. We'll just wait and see. Now I want to wait for the 2022 Tundra, see how that looks like, and now we just keep going from one thing to another. I don't know. Well, we'll wait and see. It's very hard for me to decide, but we'll see. Guys, thank you so much for sticking around for this channel for 1 year, and here's many years to come. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you for joining the live stream. I hope I got to some of the questions. I know we never get to all the questions, but like I told you, emails and social media contact is a little rough right now, but if you have any questions, leave a comment on any of my videos and I'll get back to you. And until the next live stream, one thing about the live stream, sorry. I'm trying to set a schedule. We're not there yet. I did a poll and you guys voted, but I'll eventually update you when I do set a time. I'm going to experiment with a few times. We're trying to get this live stream to go every week. Guys, before we wrap up the live stream, if you liked it, don't forget that thumbs up for me. If you didn't like it, put a thumbs down. It's okay. Everybody has their opinion. Until the next live stream in the next video, guys, may the Lord bless you and keep you. And you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.